that old man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Hello, hello, hello.
What's up?
What's up, my man?
Nothing much.
I thought you were gonna bag on me, and then I realized I didn't send you the link.
That's right.
Yeah, we're late because it's my fault, honestly. I take the blame for it completely. That's okay. I got big shoulders, so I'm good. What's happening?
Nothing much. I was just thinking about it's funny. You sent me that picture earlier about what does this piece look like? And my answer was, oh, it looks like it comes from this type of kit versus that type of kit. And after I said that, I was thinking about it a little bit today, how going into like IDing something. And when you see posts and people trying to figure things out, there's always this kind of like, hey, I try, but I really don't understand IDing. And so I started putting like a little bit of thought into it. And it really does, I know we're kind of jumping into it here, right? But it really does kind of correlate to like real life, right? So, when we're talking about found parts, when it's like a helmet or a hilt or a blaster, and basically you get there because somebody's a electrician, if you will, or somebody's an engineer, or somebody works with this type of thing or that type of thing, and they're like, oh, this looks a lot like such and such. And then that's how you kind of like start going in the right direction and narrow things down. And I just thought it was really interesting. I was like, oh, this doesn't look like this. This looks like it was like, oh, this doesn't look like, a plane. It looks like a car. And it's like, okay, well, it may not be right, but at least get you in the right direction. And I was like, as you start to really realize that it's not necessarily about IDing the exact part, but at least if you put yourself in the right direction, and if you at least start going, if you at least align yourself with where to look, you have a much better chance, much more narrow, availability of finding that piece. And I just thought it was interesting. And I was like, wow, like the chances of, being able to find that piece is just kind of a 1 in a million. But once you look at it and realize like, oh, because most people can say, well, that's a piece from a boat and know that it's not a piece from like a school bus, right? It's one of those type of things. Yeah, again, I know this kind of jumped off really quick, but I was just doing a lot of thinking about that today specifically. And yeah, it was just interesting. And then I was just kind of like digging through stuff and looking at stuff and matching up stuff. But then where it gets complicated is when you do narrow it down to a specific type of thing, like, automobiles. Then it's like, what type of automobile? Because, it doesn't matter. Even in real life, you have, Hyundai or a Nissan or a Jaguar or a BMW, what you will, but they all share very similar parts. So then you have to kind of really start to like, put the dollars and cents together. But yeah, man, I don't know. The fact that there's the ability to even ID some of these things really, really, well, like, just it's one of the things I think that impresses me and overwhelms me the most, that I find really, really fascinating when doing some of these builds and looking at some of these scratch builds and things like that.
Just to give, can you?
Yeah, you break it up a little bit, but I can hear.
Or not? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, a little choppy, but I can hear.
I may have to jump off and restart my computer because I'm in the hotel and it's like every now and then your voice goes down. So people understand what the hell we're talking about. So I'm building the sandcrawler, right? And I am looking for this specific part right here, this bar that goes across, right? That's a kit part. Other people I've asked, they don't know what it is. Oh, geez. I think I may have to restart my computer just to get I'm gonna leave this picture. Probably will disappear, but keep going with that thought. It'll take me 1 minute to do this. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Do you think?
Yeah, it's not working right. I'm in a hotel and I even paid for the higher speed internet and it's not fucking working. 1 minute. You good on your own?
Yeah, I got this.
Okay.
You know me. So while Chris is doing that, let's get back to what I was saying. As I mentioned, without being repetitive, I know I kind of jumped in there real quick and straight to the point, but it was one of those things where Chris was showing me some images, and he's like, what do you think this might be? And that's something we do. Is he's building something, or as I'm building something, we'll share reference and images, just like anybody does, and kind of just pick each other's brain. So it's one of those things where, as you get a little bit better and a little bit more familiar, you start to say, oh, well, that comes from a car, or that comes from a plane or a boat. And although these types of vehicles do share similar parts, there's a specific style to the way these parts look and the type of sizing and things like that. So it's interesting, but do also have like race cars. And so as I was mentioning, and Chris pulling up that picture, I started to think about the hobby overall, especially as I scratch build more and more now. I think most of the projects I work on now are primarily scratch built. And, there's beautiful paint jobs out there, and there's just, there's beautiful builds. And these are all things that the more you do, you can get better at, and you can practice, and, you can, the more you build, the better you get at it. But when it comes to IDing things, it's just something that's so impressive because you really are going above and beyond to reverse engineer something. And you're doing it where, unlike I can hear you. Yep. Unlike the schematics of, say, a gaming system or a PC or a computer, where the engineer literally noted and marked down every step of the build, a lot of the stuff, and we even talked about the Falcon a few days ago, as strategically placed as a lot of those pieces are, as they were building it, it was kind of like, just, hey, whatever looks good and fits, roll with it. And if they found a piece that looked just right, they popped it on, and then they popped it on 6 more times, to give some cohesiveness. And it's just like, they didn't say, hey, wait a minute, let me stop and write this down, kit such and such, sprue D, part 16. Like, they didn't do that. So to be able to go in and...
Hold on. Jason, hold on.
What?
So in Star Wars, they didn't do that. But Empire and Jedi, they started doing that, right?
Yeah, as they got, and more towards like Jedi. ESB was more like recycling some pieces and rehashing pieces from Star Wars and things like that. And even Jedi, it was more along the lines of like documenting the built piece. It wasn't necessarily saying like, okay, this came from a Tyrell and it was like sprue D and part 18. I don't think they went that detailed, but they did start to document it a little bit more. It was more so like when they started getting into the prequels and doing, digital scans and feeding information to the computer, that became a little bit easier. But Star Wars was, as we know, straight up, everything about it was very, very, very crude and very rudimentary from the beginning. The entire movie was pretty much, entire movie was pretty much scratch built, if you will. And not to be funny and make a pun, but it really was.
Wow.
But we see the same with the helmets and the blasters, where there was a lot of reuse and a lot of kind of taking things and stretching the budget, trying to get the most out of it. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Jedi is when they got a decent amount of documentation, or at least something that made a little bit more sense. But before that, it was kind of just willy-nilly. And the whole parts thing, it just really is, something else on its. It's the one thing, and even when we talk about stuff, Chris, right? We mention this ad nauseum. We repeat it all the time. People know what's one of the biggest contentions of the modeling community: sharing information, lack of information, accessibility, availability. And the thing is nobody's gonna tell you, no when you ask how to paint something. Everybody's gonna be like, hey, these are the colors you use, and these are the steps you should take, or
Have
this
at
is the
it.
style in which you should do it in. You know,
Right. Yeah.
if you ask somebody like, hey, how do I build? Not how do I build, as in what do I use, but how do I build? Well, you glue piece A to glue piece B. You use these type of tools, and you cut it with these type of tools, and you use this, this brand, Plastrek or Evergreen, except that's all completely accessible. But you ask somebody, well, what's the part?
Right.
Whoa,
But
hold on.
when it comes to kit parts,
Yeah, it's like, well, hold on now, hold on. Now, there's a reason to that. And again, we've talked about the reasons as well. But that reasoning really puts emphasis, because that's basically the key to what, all right, the sandcrawler, for example. Something like this, a panel. We are literally looking at a wall of a made pretend machine, and it's just that sort of situation you find yourself in, as to, okay, well, how do I get this to be the most accurate representation of a sandcrawler?
yeah, by putting the right kit parts on. That's how you get it to look exactly like a
Ex-
sandcrawler.
Exactly. So I kind of got into this whole like philosophical mental deep dive today about found parts, and it also helped that I had to move some stuff around and clean some stuff up, and I'm looking through kits, and it's just, yeah, it really becomes one of those things where your brain starts to lock in and see things differently and view things differently, and you start to realize how vast it is, and how things really can be anything. And then your mind plays tricks on you a little bit, where you're like, well, I can't figure this out. Is this something that they scratch built? But then you have to be sensible. Like, well, why would they work harder and not smarter? The idea was to work smarter and not harder, because they had to get this stuff, on screen and ready to go. There was no time to sit around and
Quickly.
say, hey, this got to be the best it can be. Like, no, they had a budget, they had time constraints. It was like, get it done, get it on screen, get it shot, get it going. They didn't sit around for months on end like we do, working on this stuff, and going over every, finite detail and small nuance. You know, this stuff was banged out in days, if not, weeks for some of the more complex ones. But even that was a handful of people moving at a very quick pace. So yeah, it's really interesting to sort of try to put your mind there. But also, we talked about this as well. I mentioned this on the last show.
About right.
Taking yourself.
Jason, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep. Yeah, I can hear yours.
Okay. My internet is absolutely terrible. Like, you keep going in and out, and I don't know if you can hear what I'm saying. But like, the hard part about this is where people get very protective of these part IDs, okay? Because you look at this part here, right? And really, it's hard to tell what the hell it is, okay? It looks like a bar with a couple little knots on it, right? But when somebody is sitting there for days and hours pouring through kit scans and actual boxes of model parts to find this one very nondescript piece, right? And then they have a eureka moment where they actually find it. Like, I've had a couple of those, and it's just like, holy shit, I fucking found it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, I mean, I didn't understand it at first. I really didn't. And I was one of those people who were like, well, why don't these people just give me this information? Right. And then now I realize, because because they didn't give me this information, it made to
Yeah, I
that
think I'm
point.
losing you.
Once I got to that point, like, I took the time to start going through kit scans and boxes, and once I started finding things on my own, it helped me to be a better builder, right? And I think that's where a lot of people have a hard time understanding, they call it hoarding, but it's not hoarding. It's taking your work that you took a lot of time to do and not just giving it to somebody who's like, "Hey, can I have that ID?" Right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's something where you're going to take that information that, let's say like I spent weeks looking for this thing, and you're going to take that information and make money off of it.
And
Like,
monetize. Yeah.
yes, that's where people get so salty and so upset, and it's the wrong impression when you say to somebody, "Oh, you're just snobby and you're just hoarding everything and you're just,"
You just won't
no,
give it because you don't want to. What I try to
right? No,
what I try to tell people now, and you're right, and we've said this in the past, it's very true. People, you don't realize when you start to get frustrated and I want this info, just give it. I say it all the time. Like I would not be able to do the things that I'm able to do today if I was handed the keys, right?
yes, yes,
If instead I was thrown in and told, "Hey, swim or drown," like this is it. Because I'm
right,
like, man, just give me the answers, man. Like I would even go, I'm being honest here. I would have conversations with certain people, and there was no deliberate disrespect or anything like that, but out of pure frustration, I would get on the phone with Chris and be like, what the like what, just come on, like what is the problem, just let me have it, like why are they making me
yeah,
chase my tail? And then I realized, like, they give you little crumbs here and there. It's not purely with malice or in any
no,
intent to be rude, or they'll give you a few crumbs, and it's like, but hey, if you do this and you can figure it out, trust me, you'll be better off. And then you start to realize as you do, like, wow. And like you said, that eureka moment, the best way to explain it to people who can listen to it, be like, yeah, I get it. If you really, really want to understand it, okay, picture having 1,000-piece puzzle. And it's not like dumping the pieces out and putting the puzzle together. It's as if you left all the pieces of the puzzle in the box, and someone randomly points to a picture. Let's say it's a picture of, a park, and someone points to a corner of a tree and says, find that color in that image, that little cut of the puzzle. And then you're digging through that box of 1,000 pieces of, green trees, and you find that one piece of 1,000-piece puzzle, and you're like, holy, this is it. This is the piece. Like it's that difficult at times. It really is.
it
It's not
is,
always that
it
difficult,
is.
but it sometimes is. And that's why when you get that eureka moment, not only is it so rewarding,
Mhm.
and sometimes, and Chris, we've both been there. There's times where you're in the middle of a build and you have that eureka moment and you get so amped up and so excited, and Sally or Susie or Bill's like, yeah, we knew that. And you're like, oh, but you know what? But that's
It doesn't
okay.
matter. It's okay.
You're right.
Yeah,
It's okay because you were able to get there, and it gets you one step closer to putting your mind in that mode, in that direction, to be able to continue doing it more.
right,
So although
right.
sometimes the eureka moment is bittersweet and short-lived, it still makes you a better builder overall, and it does give you a better understanding. Because I feel like as we preach this stuff, people just look at us like, oh, you've been doing it for a couple of years now, so you're just of the mind that, like,
Mhm.
yeah, everybody just wants the quick way out, or everybody just wants the easy way out. And it's like, no, I was right there with you, buddy. I was just as frustrated as you were, if not more. I'm with you. I side with you. But as you mentioned, like, I wouldn't be able to accomplish or achieve the things I'm able to do today. And you know this. I mean, you've said it directly to me, many times, where you're very impressed with my builds and how meticulous and how refined they are. And it's like,
Listen,
again,
don't go swelling your head up on camera. Don't be doing
no, but really,
that.
I do genuinely wonder if, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, like with the work I
Yeah, I
do, at
do.
least from a build perspective. I do wonder, would I be at that level if
No,
I wasn't
you wouldn't.
forced to? I don't think I
No,
would be.
no,
I
I
think it'd
wouldn't
be a lot
be.
more slap
I've
happy and lazy and
I've found a lot of parts. I found a lot of parts on my own lately, and the reason for now that I can do that is because I was forced to. I was forced to figure out. All right, I really want this information. I'm gonna go find it myself. Like there. So I think what we both you and I can say without a doubt. Okay, so when people come to us and they're like, "Well, why can't you give me this?" Okay, we were in both positions. Okay, we were in that position where we were the people who were saying, "Well, I want this information. You have it. Why won't you give it to me?" Right? We were those people. We were in the beginning. Okay. So I feel good saying right now that, we were in both positions. So now we're in the position where people are asking us for things, and we now understand because we were forced to go through that transition to this point where we can now identify things on our own, you know? So I'm not like talking out of my ass right now. Like I'm talking from experience of doing it, of being in both places. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I tried it. I've tried a couple times to explain things to sometimes. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. Like I don't know what to say. Like I tried explaining things sometimes, but I'm never like, hey asshole, like I'm just like I
Yeah.
try my best to be political about it, but I'm thinking to myself, you're not getting it. You're just not, I don't know. And then there are times where I didn't find this stuff, right? But like I have the information, but it's somebody else did the work to get that information.
Yes.
And
And you've
it
built that
takes
level of trust and rapport with somebody.
trust. And we
Yes.
say it all the
And
time,
5 years to build a relationship, 5 minutes to ruin it.
man. 5 seconds to destroy it,
Mhm.
right? You tell somebody how to do something, and you tell somebody, and it gets back around, and then you are out of the information. You won't be trusted with this information. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, John, what the hell are you doing awake?
If you're awake, come on, man. Jump on.
Come on, man. He's got to put his makeup on and do his hair, and
Foo Kachu.
yeah. What are you wearing right now? You probably in your P's right now, aren't you?
I'm rocking my I got some pajamas on.
I'm
Matching.
gonna send him the link just in case he wants to come on. He's probably like sneaking on his phone in the bathroom so his kids don't wake up and his wife don't wake up.
Reminds me of This Is 40 when Paul Rudd pretends he's going to the bathroom, but he's really just in there playing games on his phone.
Yeah, he's in there, yeah. I listen, I understand when people, I'm not trying to make anybody angry or disagree with anybody. I really am not. I don't want people to take this even the wrong way, but like it just kind of, I don't think everybody's going to get it either, but maybe just a little bit, just like they'll kind of start to understand a little bit. Man, he's in bed. Come on.
That's all right. You can serenade him to sleep with your boring voice.
Yeah. I put people to sleep. It's because it's so soothing. That's the thing. I talk in my wife's ear all night to get her to go to sleep. Yeah.
No, and jumping off, I wasn't even trying to go here, but as you asked me that today, and I started thinking about it, it just really put me into that thought process again of like how I'm like, no one's gonna turn you down if you ask for help on how to build something or how to paint something or what tools to buy or what materials to purchase. But when it comes to the parts, it's highly guarded, and there's a reason. And you're right.
Yeah.
The understanding of, I mean, anybody can logically, right, from an intelligent perspective, be like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's a lot of hard work, so they don't just want to give up the goose. All right, I get that. But There's a reason you kind of want to stress why, right? And then, like you said, sometimes it's just not your information to give. And that's another thing we run into. People that are like, come on, what's your problem? Or like, you know what? I don't see it that way. Or, good riddance. And it's like, hey, like, it's just not my information to give away. It's like if somebody, let's say your buddy gave you the keys to his Ferrari for the weekend. He gave you the keys to the Ferrari. And then someone else is like, oh, man, that's a badass car. And although it's another one of your buddies and you trust them and you're good buddies, you can't just be like, hey, here's the keys, take it for a spin. It's like you're now liable and accountable for that. And you don't want to leave it vulnerable. And it's nothing against that particular person. It's just that, like, hey, he trusted me with this. And the last thing I want to do is put it in a vulnerable position and be liable for that. And that's the best way I could think of it. It's just like you can't pass on something that isn't necessarily yours. But at the same time, the difficult part of all that and the frustrating part of all that is like you want the hobby and the interest and everything that comes along with it to continue moving in the right direction, to continue growing, to draw interest, to bring new people in. And you don't want to scare people off and you don't want to scare people away. So sometimes I also feel like it's talking about some of the stuff counterintuitive of people going to be like, hey, I might want to try my hand at this. I might want to try my hand at building something just for the fun of it. But man, it sounds like too much trouble. And you know what? It really is. Yeah.
I'm almost of the mind I like it better when there wasn't so much spotlight on it. There's a big spotlight on studio scale modeling right now. Huge.
Well, yeah, it's definitely got its pros and cons for those reasons, yes. But anything that continues to have a heartbeat is good for everybody, right? But you're right. It's got a big bright light on it, but the light is shining on a swollen sore thumb, and that's the problem. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to emphasize the flaws of the the hobby, but it's tricky.
So like here's another piece that I don't know, like, and there's not a lot of good photos of it. It just looks like a freaking thigh bone, like imagine like going through pictures of kit scans and going through boxes and trying to find this. Okay. And there's hardly any descriptive features about it, and even sometimes, a lot of times, this may be part of a bigger piece where you have to like, all right, look at it. Okay, could this be the small piece? Could this be the small? Case in point. Okay. Yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, I know this kit part's in this box. I can't find it. I don't see it. Like, can you look and see?" So, right. And then like I look at it and it has this one little dimple and this one little line. I'm like, that's it, John. It's literally like this big. Okay. And it's like a third of that piece that's like 2 inches by half an inch wide. And you have to have an eye to like look at these things and okay, it could be this cut up here, it could be, you got to find these little tiny features that stand out, that tell you what part it is. And like if you look at this picture here, there's a lot to go off of on here, right? So like I need to find these. I need to find these 3 pieces because if not, I'll be incomplete and my sandcrawler will be like trash. You know what I mean? I don't know. I understand why people are as protective as they are. And I didn't always, but I do now.
It definitely gives you much better appreciation and respect for it as well. I definitely respect things differently and I appreciate things more.
Yeah. And I just like, I want people to understand that when they come to me and like, some people are like, yeah, I understand that. That's fine. I get it. I understand. I don't want to put you in a bad spot, and some people are just like, no, you should give it to me. You know, like it's just and I just like, okay, well, that's fine. I understand you don't understand it, but
Chris, one thing I want to make a note of too, right? I mean, interject so quickly, but I just want to put this out there. There's gonna be it's one of those situations that as we're talking about something like this, it's kind of sensitive. There's gonna be that one or two people that are like, oh wow, really? Like you're on your show talking about me like that? Listen, man, we're not singling any one individual out. If I could go through the handful of messages, or if not more, that I get on a daily basis, that people ask for stuff or ask for info, this isn't applicable to any one individual or any one person. I mean, it happens often. And
yeah.
it's not even that they assume that I myself know or that Chris, knows or has the answers. It's just that at this point, we're doing these shows. John joins us sometimes, and as people know, we're building these things and we're working on these things, and it's just that, like, okay, well, at the very least, if they don't necessarily know it, they know who to go to get it. And that's why I'm saying, like, we're not going after any one individual, but it really does make or break, the
A
decisions you make. Yeah,
Yeah.
the relationship you have, the decisions you make on like what projects you're going to take on, what projects you're going to do, because through looking at the parts, I mean, there's ships I can look at now and immediately be like, wow, this is the price range I'm going to fall into. This is the amount of time I'm going to have to invest. This is the amount of money I'm going to have to invest. And that's one of the things. And there's times where I take commissions or build pieces, and someone's like, well, why is piece A $3,000 and piece B only $600? I'm like, okay, they may look just as complex as each other, but part A, it's almost, it's completely difficult to gather those kits and gather those pieces. But model B, I can easily get those pieces. They're readily available and they're cheaper. I don't have to spend as much time, effort, and energy chasing them down. Now it's still scratch built, and I'm still having to put the time in, build wise, but I'm not wasting weeks and months searching for kits and narrowing down kits or spending a ton of money on the kits. I can just go and say, hey, I need 4 of these, 2 of these, 3 of these, and buy them for $40 a piece. So
Right.
that's why. And trying to explain that sometimes is really difficult. Like, why is this $4,000? And it's like, because people people tend to look at something and be like, well, okay, like slave one, okay, that makes it for 10 grand. That makes sense because it's slave one. But if it's, let's say, like an A-wing, that doesn't. Well, if an A-wing has complex pieces on it, then yeah, at the end of the day, that could be an expensive piece, and then vice versa, the slave one may not be. And I mean, that's a stretch, right? It's a little bit of exaggeration, but just to kind of put it into perspective.
Jason, also look at let's say slave one, right? It's a very complex piece, okay, and it's very very time consuming. There's a lot of factors in it. But let's say like my silo, okay, it's not that complex. It's not difficult. You need 3 to 4 C labs to build one of those things, and C labs are not cheap.
Nightmare.
That's a nightmare. Yeah. So like it's also a couple different factors, but I want to say something before we go down this road. Like the people who are really good at IDing, most people don't even know their names. Okay. We're on this channel because we're attention whores, and people come to us. These guys, if you're listening, you know who you are. Way smarter than us, way more educated than us, and they know way more than us. So, I just want to put that out there, and they probably don't get asked because they're not such attention whores like us.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be where we are today. Not just us, but the community, and in and of itself wouldn't be where it is safe if it wasn't for those few people who, you're right, do stay behind the scenes and do keep the wheels turning.
But like I was saying, so like that silo, it might be an expensive piece to build because, it's smaller. It's, not very complicated, but it has expensive kit parts on it.
Yeah. In multiple ones
Just
as well.
really. What's that?
I said in multiples of the same expensive kit.
Yes. I mean, how much does a C Lab go for about now? Like
I'd say
three,
eBay
4,
prices like
500?
3 to 5. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you have kits that aren't necessarily expensive. They're not necessarily expensive, but they're difficult to find. Or you have kits that aren't difficult to find, but they're expensive. Like there's kits that are plentiful, but they're $300-400 a kit. Then there's kits that may only be $75, but they never show up.
Right. Yeah. Like the one that you got for me. It's not that expensive,
It's not
but
an expensive kit, but they just never pop up.
no, they never show up on eBay, which is weird because you would think that would translate into more expensive, but not always.
Not always. I even tell you that about found parts. Remember when you started taking a little interest in found parts? I said, hey, man,
Yeah.
it's the most interesting thing. I said, there's some pieces out there that never come up. They're almost impossible to get. And you're like, oh,
Right.
you just assume, man, that must be an arm and a leg. I'm like, nope. When they do, you can get it for $100, $125. I'm like, the niece
Right.
pieces, you can find them all day, every day, but you'll be paying $1,000 for it. It's just crazy how that works. So that's not always, but it's just an example.
So let me show this picture too as well here. Another thing I'd like to point out, we talk about. Okay, you see this sandcrawler in 3 different lighting, 3 different flash photographies, right?
I love it. Not only that, but it's 3 different versions of 70s and 80s lighting.
Yes. And it's also very hard to tell the colors. Like this looks like my sandcrawler. Like it has the reddish brown. Okay. And up top here, these don't, well, they do a little bit, but then you go back to, like, let's say this picture, right? Totally different lighting. It looks way darker. Some people paint it like this. Some people paint it like this. It's hard to tell which way to go because of different photography, flash photography. Like this was taken at Celebration. I could kill myself right now. Like I was at this celebration. I took one picture of this thing. I wish to God I would have been known what I was looking at. And I knew what I was looking at, but like I wasn't into it like I am now. I'd spend most of my Celebration visit staring at this thing. Dude, I've become obsessed with sandcrawlers. I don't think if you haven't noticed.
Now, what I found interesting too, as I got a little bit more well versed, is now when you start to look at reference, whether it's some of the books or magazines or excerpts or features, wherever you see images of these things for reference, as you mentioned, because of the difference of lighting, when you look at certain builds, there's times where I can literally look at something that somebody built and said, oh, well, they use this book as a reference because they're painting it, as you mentioned, based off what they're looking at. And people like to say, oh my God, look how bad this paint job is. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you know what they were looking at, it's actually a good paint job because they replicated what they were looking at. And that was really, I thought that was really smart to pull that up on the fly and say, hey, here it is in 3 variations of light, and it's in 3 varying stages of what it may look like to the eye as far as like contrast and colors. And I can look at a model sometimes, not all the time, but I can look at a model sometimes and say, hey, this person was using this book or this reference or this image when they were painting this. And you can tell, and it's not that they're a bad painter, it's just that they were emphasizing certain colors based on the lighting in that image at that time. And, there's one person in particular that when we first started trying to learn and navigate the painting and sort of the ILM, quote unquote, style, where we were like, man, this seems a little heavy handed. And then we started realizing, wait a minute, it's not that the painting is incorrect. It's that the references that they're using correlate directly with the paint jobs that they're applying. Remember that, Chris?
I do remember that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, there's two different lightings here. Like two totally different looking vehicles.
Yeah, and if I was to apply contrast and color and different layers of opacity and things like that, that is something that you would look at, and that's a really tricky thing, because I see paint jobs get ripped apart and knocked all the time, and I really try to be open-minded to it, because I'm like, look, it doesn't mean the person's a bad painter. It just all depends on what they're utilizing for reference.
Nobody's really a bad painter. They just need more experience.
Yeah, we even had we had a picture of one of Jason Eaton's X-Wings on one time. Somebody in the comments had said something, and I said, well, wait a minute. I said, if you look at the image, this is correct. They had pointed something out, had something to do with like the weathering or the way it was kind of like placed on there. And I had said, wow, that's pretty spot on, right? And I don't even think we knew we were looking at Jason's work at the time. I just said, wow, that X-Wing is pretty spot on the way that was applied. And someone had mentioned, no, this, that, and the other is wrong. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you look at the way it was applied, it was done well, and it even stood out to me. And then after the fact, I had learned, okay, this was done this way based on what the reference photos were, etc. But yeah, it's really tricky, and it's hard because you have to navigate around this, because it can even play, I mean, to anybody, to the finest painters. I mean, unless you've done it unless you're someone like John, right? Not to put John on the spot, whether you're listening or not, John, like, we all know that when it comes to painting, you're the guy. Your paint work is impeccable and fantastic and beautiful, and you just knock it out of the park each time.
He loves hearing that, by the way. He loves hearing that. Yeah? Oh yeah, that was a good pat on the back. yeah.
But no, it's true. But he's also at the point where he's done enough pieces where he can kind of just get the piece and do it. He I still, even if I painted a piece 3 times, I still use references. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But
no, he does. No, he does. He actually has like 3 or 4 books sitting on the table as he's painting everything. Even like he was showing me, I think he did the Y-wing in the one video, and he even described he has like 3 to 4 books sitting out just so he can,
I think I've seen.
I don't think anybody can just paint something and then, like remember it a month or 2 down the line and remember exactly how it's painted.
Maybe not the nuance and the details like the back here, but the overall like layering of laying down the colors, like the sandcrawler, like what colors it is, and this and the other. But even that, the color theory is interesting in and of itself, because again, you're working with something and the technology that the way the case. I mean, some of these we're looking at Polaroids. I mean, come on. Whatever the lighting was in the room at the time, then you literally, like, no joke, you're shaking the thing, shake it like a Polaroid picture. You're using that as your go-to. And that's also what makes IDing parts complicated, because it's not like a Polaroid image is 1080p or 32 pixels or anything like that. I mean, you remember when we started getting to the point of figuring things out? Well, me and Chris were getting into like software where we can like sharpen images and turn these old granulated, degraded, depixeled images into like sharper, higher contrast images, and kind of make out shapes a little better, and sort lighting a little bit better. And I mean, that's how truly obsessed you get at times to try to find the answer to what you're looking for, whether it be weathering or lighting, or how strong should this orange or white be, and should it be on top, should it be coming through, should this part be round or squared, or it really is a mental labor of love too.
I just realized these are lights. I just realized it. There's lights back here. Wow. I just realized that.
I mean, I'm not gonna like I knew, but I just knew from looking at previous images. But yeah,
It's the first time I've noticed them. I've looked at this ass many, 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 many times.
how you do?
So, what do you think these things are? These little red things. Are they? They're not. Are they fiber optics? Because there's some down here too.
Oh, I gotta make my screen big for
Right
that,
there.
brother.
Yeah, they're right there. These. Well, I'm gonna zoom in as much as I can, but are those fiber optics? Because that would make me feel real good. Because of the sandcrawler that I did, I put fiber optics not there, but I put them over here somewhere on mine. Little red ones. Do you think they're fiber optics?
I don't know.
Like that right there?
There's one, yeah, and there's one on the other side too.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like a pink red rocket, but you know.
Oh Jesus!
Like, okay, so do you have like, okay, so you've done ATST a couple times. Is there something that you enjoy painting? I could tell you right now, I love painting this section, right? This orange, broken up orange that's right here. I love painting that. I don't know why. It's one of my favorite parts about this sandcrawler is the back here with the dripping and all this stuff. I think I got a message.
It's an interesting question. Are there favorite parts? Yeah, I like creating stippling.
Okay.
I don't know. There's certain things where you kind of get the edges. Once you get it primed, once you get it painted, because as you know, when I'm doing my builds, I prime and contrast. I prime in black and then variations of grays. And I do that on purpose to help me guide, especially when I'm working on multiple projects at once and I may not return back to something for a couple of weeks. It helps me, okay, this is where I am in my build. But it also helps, as most people know, as you're weathering and layering and you're chipping away, you expose those darker colors underneath. So although weathering was painted onto a lot of these models, in some cases, the weathering was what we call subtractive, kind of like what you see on Boba Fett's helmet. It wasn't painted in layers; it was subtractively. It was painted with subtractive layers. So as they put more and more damage, that damage was more or less exposed rather than painted on. And that's true for some of the models. When you look at the Y-wing, when you look at the Falcon, look at the back of the ATST and stuff like that. So all those little stippling marks and banged up marks are basically the undercoats coming through in some instances. And yeah, I don't know. I enjoy that sometimes, especially when there's smaller bits. I like getting into the finer detail and kind of taking just those like for sewing, they're needles, but they get the little round heads on them.
Little round heads on needles. No, I don't.
Yeah, it's for like sewing or knitting or whatever you like mark your points. I don't know what it's for specifically, but it's basically like a sewing needle, but it's got like a round. They usually have red or white round heads on them, almost like a matchstick, right? So if you dip that in the dude, what's the paint that you put on and it turns purple? You peel it off. I can never get the name of it. What is that stuff called, dude?
It's liquid mask.
Liquid mask.
Liquid mask. It's latex, basically.
I know, but they call it something. There's like a name for it. So yeah, the liquid mask. So you can literally take little needle, tip size bits of it and just boop, 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 and then spray. And then once you rub it off with your thumb, you see that come through and it looks so natural. And I love bringing out that natural look, that like real life look. Oh, here's a nice cleaner pick of the red. Let me see.
That is.
Oh yeah,
fiber optics. Yeah.
The lights.
Damn, I'm gonna have to have fiber optics in my new one now. Shit.
Look at that nice dusting of white, huh?
That again, you cut out.
Let's look at that nice dusting of white.
Oh God!
When you zoom in,
Kenny, it is my favorite paint job on any model. It's just, oh, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I was done.
I was gonna say, I was like, oh, look at that dusting of white. And I said, now this is one of those pictures that if John had painted this, I would say, well, wait, is that a misting or is that dust?
Yeah, sure.
John, is that dust or is that misting?
I don't think John has ever done a sandcrawler. He has his sandcrawler. He never painted it, and I keep telling him, man, you got to paint that thing. I want to see. I want to see how you do a sandcrawler. I mean, this. ah, Tell me this isn't like the coolest paint job on any model in Star Wars.
Oh, it's beautiful. You get so many different things going on here, but yet as messy and sloppy and all over the place as this is, it is so aesthetically cohesive.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I love this dripping, this like staining here. This was so much fun to do when I did mine. And I can't wait to do my I feel like I don't get to build. Oh, I know that part. I feel like I don't get to paint things nearly as much as I want to because I'm spending so much time building. It's I build more than I paint.
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
No. I was reading the comments. Love the rusted looking paint job. Yeah, there's just something very satisfying of applying a artificial rust, and when it looks natural and real. Yeah, it's just something really satisfying about that.
So this too here, like this orange, you helped me this orange.
Yeah. When I was teaching about opacity and different layers and things like that.
Yeah. I was painting the. Well, no, I was painting it. It wasn't strong enough.
At the time, yours wasn't coming through.
No.
Probably.
And then once you told me to add the gray to it, it brought it out, like made it stand out more, which it helped because it gave me more of a faded look around the outside, and then in the middle it gave it more brilliance. But like I wouldn't figure that out on. You kind of rely on your friends and to help you out and things and give you pointers. It's all about the relationships you make in this community. Like think about it, dude. Like we wouldn't have or know half the stuff we do if we hadn't formed good relationships with a lot of different people. Like the toys are fun, the models are fun. You put them on your shelf, you look at them when they're great, and I sit there and stare at them all the time. But like I spend most of my day talking to people online. I don't talk to my wife nearly as much as I talk to people in, from, all the way at the top of the United States and all the way across the Atlantic, like she said to me one time, she's like, you don't talk to me half as much as you talk to Jason. Oh, babe, it's not even close. she's like, really? That's a problem. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, like they talk about things that I like to talk about, My wife, love her. She's actually trying. She's trying a little bit to understand it, but one day.
Maybe we've all been there where it's like, I know it's another Darth Vader, another model. I know.
Yeah.
They can only be so excited for us.
Yeah. Does that look like something? That just looks like paint right there, doesn't it? That little white spot. That's just paint. That's not a kit part.
No, it's a little chipping, I think.
Okay, so all right, so let's talk about the little issue I ran into before. Let me see if I can find that picture. Yep, don't want to go that. Here, let me take this off so I don't show anything.
You really do have quite a variation of images here in different lighting. I really like it.
What are you saying?
I said you really do have a nice variation of images in various levels of lighting. I said it's great to see that and get a little taste. Yeah.
I have 200 pictures, 200 plus pictures of so I'm building the sandcrawler, right? and I'm building the studio scale size one. I have the smaller one, but I'm building the bigger one. Okay. And is that going to help me? Yes. No, that isn't the picture I'm looking for. It's a good thing you talk a lot because A, I'm trying to find pictures, and B, my internet's got great.
No, it's not. I'm surprised. It's really kind of cutting in and out.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel, dude. Like it doesn't make any sense. All right, let me share this. How bad is it, Jason? Am I really that bad?
No, it's kind of dropping in and out, but right now you're good.
Okay. So I'm building this, right? And I have the wood, and the procedure is you skin it with this size styrene, and then you plate it with this size styrene. Like, okay, so this here is the plates, right? And this is the skinning, okay? Underneath it, there's 2 layers there. Okay, so I did that. I skinned the whole thing. Then I start plating it, right? Then I see this right here. This picture really threw me for a loop. There are 3 levels here. There's 1, 2, 3, right? So I'm like, sons of bitch. Now I gotta like somehow cut and scrape off the styrene that I've already glued to this. Out to my internet, of course. Can you believe I'm in a freaking hotel and it's this bad?
I'm a little surprised, especially when you said you paid for like the.
I did. I paid the $4.99. Which isn't much, but even still.
That's not a bad deal. I think Marriott, if you're not a Bonvoy member, is like $15 a high-speed internet.
Well, I'm in a Hilton. I'm in a Hampton Inn, but so it should be better, but it's not. I tried to find Marriotts around here. There are none within like 100 miles of where I'm. So like I was saying, okay, I'm all ready. I skinned the whole thing. I'm all ready to start plating it. I drew. Maybe I could show that picture. I drew this whole side, right? I took my calibers. I measured the kit parts. I measured the plates. I got it right. I'm about to start putting these suckers on right here, these door looking things, right? And then I get here and I'm like, so I spend like the next 3 hours trying to get this little section right here out, right? Throws my whole day off. I was fixing my fuck up, right? All because of this picture. Let me see if I can find that picture of the drawing. Oh. Did you stub your toe?
I did.
Did you really?
That? Yeah,
I did. I heard a thunk, and then I heard you gasp.
I did.
Tell me how bad it is, Jason. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not trying to be, but if I were you, when we're done, I would. It's only $5, but I'd be like, hey, you got to refund me.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I've already bothered the people at the front desk already enough. So I want to show this, and then here it is. Let me see if I can. Can I? Yeah, I'm gonna save it, and then where am I save it? Let's just put it here. Let's save it here. So what I did was I took the calibers, measured it all out right here, drew it on a piece of styrene that was the same, that was a template for my sandcrawler, right? Spent all day measuring, drawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I find out it doesn't fit. I actually cut these out, started applying them. And then it somehow, some way, it ended up that these were too tight. I was smart though. Okay, I didn't put it right on. I actually put double-sided tape on and started
Nice, yeah.
placing it so that if I messed it up, then I could peel it right off and just trim it a little. So that's what.
So then they ended up being bigger than you
Re-
needed, or
What's that?
they ended up being slightly too big?
Yeah, it crowded the edges too much. So like I'm going on off of a picture, okay, and it's hard to see like an exact line where the picture is at, where the plate ends. So if you take if you shave off I don't know. Jesus, I cannot believe how bad this internet is.
Dude, you get like John level internet right now.
I do. What does it say? If you guys switched whose camera was on, maybe Chris wouldn't have the dropouts. Maybe they're not particularly bad anyway, but if the video is disabled, I bet they disappear entirely. You mean like StreamYard might do better? Might not drop out so much. I do think it's my internet though, because I keep seeing the Wi-Fi sign like go lower and higher. But okay, so back to this. What I did was I didn't want to redo this. Oh, good, you're gonna do that.
Definitely makes it easier.
Add stream. I'm gonna do my camera. That's prettier than looking at me, anyways.
Dude, that picture today. Oh my god.
Which one?
Of him in the t-shirt.
Oh yeah.
I just wrote savage, and you put a little.
He's-
it's an emoji of him like winking, like oh yeah.
Yeah. He's funny as shit, isn't he? So what?
I just no, just the shirt. Sorry, it's bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So like I was saying, I did this whole one side, right? And the other side doesn't have any of this, but I want to draw this on the other. I want to put this on the other side as well. So I went to Staples today and photocopied this to the exact size so I could just use it as a template instead of remeasuring all of it again.
Well, I think that was a smart move.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention, Jason, was so I've said this to you a couple times, right? It's funny what makes you be interested in something, right?
Yeah.
Because I had no interest in a TIE fighter, right? None. I've said that to you many, many times. I've had no interest in a TIE fighter.
Yeah, which I was surprised. I remember when I was building it, you really weren't interested at all.
No, I really wasn't. I humored you, but I wasn't interested at all, right? I listened and nodded my head, but I was just, I probably don't remember anything you said in that time.
It's all right.
You had to move your sex toy back there or what?
No, I was just, it's, I'm in my bedroom, but you'd be surprised. Like, there's just Star Wars all over the house. I even got. I didn't realize how much stuff is in the background.
I think Jason Holmes was right. I haven't had much cutout since I had the video off.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Thanks, Jason. Okay, so as I was saying, I had zero interest in a TIE fighter, right? it's cool, but I thought, oh, it's not going to be something I'd want to display. I don't really want a TIE fighter model. But then I got a little piece of actual cool shade in my hands, right? And I was like, oh, I like this stuff. I like how it feels. I like how it looks, the real stuff, right?
Mhm.
I just had a little patch, like maybe a 3-inch patch, if that. And I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, this would look so cool all over the wings on a TIE fighter, like a real one, you know? Now I'm obsessed with it. Like I want one. I want to either build one or get one or something, you know?
You would think it'd be my scratch built tie that would have motivated you, but not even that was enough, huh?
No. It wasn't until I had the cool shade in my. No, don't get me wrong. When you were showing me your build, I was impressed with your skills. Okay. Even though you swore to God that you sent me pictures. Do you remember this? When I was
I
when
did.
John put up.
I thought you were on the chat with us that night, and this is a
No.
while. This is going back when Book of Boba
Yeah.
Fett was when it airing. I thought you
Yeah.
were on with us, but it wasn't. You were right. It ended up being
No.
it was Matt and CC that I was
No.
showing because it was behind me in one of those
Yeah.
sheltering
So
spaces.
John put up a couple pictures of his TIE fighter, right? And I'm like, oh man, look at the color. It's so beautiful. And I was gushing about it. And you, like a jealous girlfriend, was like, what? I've been showing you my TIE fighter for months now, and now you're gushing about John's paint job and blah 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 blah. Like,
Well, in
Jason,
all
you
you're
never
right.
showed me, you never once showed me a picture of your painted TIE fighter. I saw
Right.
I saw a ball.
But in all
Styrene
fairness,
ball.
how many times do we
Can
have
you show us
right?
that now?
I don't have it with me. I'm just
Yeah.
holding this thing. But in
Okay.
all fairness, how many times do we have conversations and you remember? Last night was a perfect example. I'm literally you sent me images of something, and I'm like, I'm literally in the middle of building this thing. I said, we just talked about it around Thanksgiving time. No, we didn't. I don't remember. I said, dude,
Listen,
I'm literally.
no. I didn't dismiss you.
No, you didn't dismiss me, but
I
you didn't
agreed
remember.
that you. No, I didn't remember. No, I do have a bad memory. I really do. Like, my wife gets mad at me all the time about it. But thing is, I don't forget this shit at all. Like, I don't forget kit parts, and I don't forget paint, procedures. And when I'm looking for something, like, I could tell you almost all the kits that I have to buy yet for my sandcrawler. Like, I don't that shit, but I forget everyday normal stuff. Like, oh, honey, can you take out the trash tonight? She'll come home and she's like, did you take out the trash? Oh yeah, I just did. I'm gonna do it. Like, I forget. It's like that, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. And okay, so I use you a lot. By the way, I use your name a lot. Every time she gets mad at me about that, I say, listen, Linda, it's not just you. I forget shit Jason tells me all the time. Like,
I do give you
I
shit
tell her
too.
that.
I'm like, dude, what
Oh
is the
yeah,
matter? I'm like, come on.
yeah. Will you freaking remember what the hell will you listen? There's times where you'll even know when I'm not listening,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
If it's
But
a
I
piece I have
snapped on
nosed
you
in.
once, remember? I snapped on you once.
Yeah, you did.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Are you
What
fucking
was that?
listening?"
What was that?
I don't remember, but I was
I
like,
think it's because you're mad at your wife. Your wife just did it to you earlier in the day,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the same
Well,
thing.
you
It's the
snapped at me.
same
I
like
gave it
it's
right
the
back
same
at you.
it's the same elusiveness of just being like, uh-huh.
Well, that's me a
It's
lot
funny.
of times, actually.
We talked about this too. When you get to know somebody well enough, dude, how spot on is Matt when he's not paying attention? Dude, you
Oh
know
my
right
God.
away when Matt's not paying attention. Right away. He says the
Immediately.
same like
Immediately. As soon as his mind starts wandering.
he's like,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
interesting. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I'm always like, brother, you with me?
Yep,
Where's your head at?
that's interesting.
It's so true. He's spot on. I'm like, you with me?
Exactly. Yep. Oh, here we go. Here, I'm gonna put this picture up right here.
That's fine. I was talking to him earlier today, and he was doing that. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I got a meeting coming." He's like, "I got a meeting. I got to jump on." So I was like, "All right, go do your thing."
Oh yeah, you can tell instantly when he's not listening. I mean, look at that cool shade. Like
See,
that
now
is coolish.
it's amazing, yeah. And in different light, it refracts differently. And but when
Mhm.
what got me to want to build a tie was, so I had the EFX one for a long time, right? I actually still
Mhm.
do. It's boxed up. If anybody wants it, shoot me a DM. Shameless plug, but so I never really, I just took it for granted. I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's a cool ship. It's a TIE fighter. But when I started understanding and learning about modeling and building, and I started knowing like the kit parts and recognizing what pieces were what, where they came from, I started realizing like, wow, the what you call it, the star, the center star, the starburst, whatever, the center of the tie wing as it goes up, the star wheels. I started realizing like, oh, this is from, these are the brake calipers from this, and this is the, piece from this kit, and a lot of it's like the what's it called, the 312T, the 312B, the P34, all those cars. A lot of them are that center wheel well. And I'm like, God, I know what this piece is, and this piece is, and this piece is. And it's funny because this is all one color technically, right? And a lot of the pieces on there initially like chrome and gray, and so it really got me like, oh, I want to start piecing this together. And once I did, dude, I just went to town on it. I'm like, these are just strips of Plastrock and T-Track mixed with this, and I just had a blast with it. And I was like, okay, if this goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. Now, I never had any intention of actually like finishing it because of the cool shade. And we all know, that point, especially early on, I was told like, you have a better chance of finding the fountain of youth than to find enough cool shade. And I was told that many a times, and they're like, oh, and if you find it, it's going to be, that down payment on a house and blah, blah, blah. And, so I was getting discouraged. And then I was like, you know what? If I find it, great. If I don't, I'll just use a cast version of it. Whatever. I want to attempt this build. So I started knocking the wings out. And I'm like, okay, like this isn't as bad as I thought. This is turned out to be a fun build. And then when I got to the ball, I'm like, oh, I bit off more than I can chew. I'm like, I'm gonna stop here. And I stopped for a while. I stopped. And then I started practicing. I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself get defeated. I'm like, it's not worth it. I really want to get on with this. It took me about a year and a half. And then finally I got around to like you said, getting a piece of cool shade. And once you play with that stuff and have it in hand, you realize why they used it, why it's so great for like
Oh yeah.
pyro and blowing the pieces up all the way it crunches and smashes. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this has to be like this is one of those pieces that when done right and done in the correct way is just a pivotal, piece in a collection. And that just gives you such a great throwback to the original way things were built. Yeah, and I love the stuff, and I love the tie now, and I have such a newfound appreciation for it. And like I had the EFX on display for like a decade, for like 10 years, looking at that thing, and it was just like, all right, this is cool. But then once I started, on the scratch one, I was just like, wow, I love this thing.
Yeah. And like I said, I had no interest until I held this stuff in my hands, and I'm thinking, this would look so freaking cool all over those wings. It never dawned on me until I held it in my hand and thought, oh wow, this is
Even
impressive.
here, look at the picture for the wings in the front towards the wings in the back. You can see the lighting kind of.
Yeah. I'm still so curious how you cut this stuff. And okay, so let me pick your brain a little bit here.
Yep.
How this arm here, like the cool shade's actually pretty thick. Like I didn't realize how thick it is. How do you put these arms here without crunching down all this other stuff? All this cool shade.
Well, the cool shade is cut almost to size, right? So at least, there might be somebody out there who knows better than I do. Now I'm still in the sort of what stage do you want to call it? The learning phase, because as you know, I'm still kind of nipping away and figuring that out. And I do have a couple cool shade pieces laid in one wing, and it looks great. But you kind of, at least what I felt like I had to do was you have to kind of cut it a little bit bigger, right? Because if you go too small, you can't grow cool shade back. You know,
Right.
so you cut a
You
little
don't
bit
want to
extra.
make you don't want to make that mistake.
Yeah, and you lay it in, and then you don't have the wing fully assembled because it sits in there, and it's not one piece of cool shade that you see on
No.
both sides of the wings. There's a piece and a piece.
Oh, it's doubled up.
It's doubled up.
Oh my
So
goodness.
when you're doing that, it gives you a little bit of leeway to say, okay, well, you know, as you're nipping along and kind of shortening it. But if you also look here, the placements of the cool shade, you get a placement here, placement here, placement here to kind of go all around. And I've seen people who have accessed and, you know, utilized real cool shade, but placed it going this way and horizontal versus, you know, vertical and vice versa. But you really got to pay attention to what you're doing with it, because otherwise there's no turning back, right? Because it is really difficult to get and it really is expensive. So it's been a painstaking, you know, a painstaking approach, but it's one of those things where I don't want to mess it up. And if it takes me 3 months or 6 months, it's just going to have to be what it is. Because I'm just afraid if I mess up, I mean, that's it.
Yeah, you can't go back, especially on something like that, because it's literally impossible to find that much cool shade twice. And, you know, I don't even, it's just down payment of a car, isn't it? It's that expensive.
Yeah, it's a couple grand. Yeah.
Yeah. Just for one roll, or?
I mean, for what I was able to acquire, but you know, I'm still trying to get a little bit more. I mean, it all differs. I had somebody reach out to me not too long ago and said, "Hey, I'm gonna get some cool shade, and just to have it on display." Like they just wanted to display a piece of cool shade, which is neat, right? Because it's like a found part or something that was kind of, you know, an everyday
It is.
item that
I
was
mean,
utilized.
honestly, just me holding it changed my whole perspective on this model. So yeah, it is worth having just a little piece just to display.
Yeah, and and when they had said, "Oh, this person has it available," I mean, it was a reason why it was a little bit more expensive that I want to get into. It was somewhat justified, but when he had said what he was about to pay for it, I mean, it was like not that much bigger than the little scrap you had, and I was like, "Whoa!" I said, "All right, you know, I really got to take it into consideration. That's you know, I got to be careful with this stuff."
Yeah. So what do you use, Jason? Another thing you had mentioned a bunch of times. I don't know. You don't have any modeling? You had talked about showing different modeling tools that you use on an everyday basis.
Yeah. Remember, go ahead.
That's a show we do want to do. Maybe we should do that next time. Just like maybe, well, we're gonna try to get Marvin on. I'd like to have him on next. I'll see if I can get him when I get back, not next week, but the week after. We'll see if I could work that out with John, to have Marvin on. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his last name. But he's a modeler who's very meticulous and IDs a lot of things and has a lot of, is very knowledgeable in a lot of model parts, I think he's in Sweden, or he's Dutch. So he's Netherlands. Is that a Dutch country? Netherlands. Okay. So we're gonna try to get him on, but I'd like to do a show coming up where we talk about some modeling tools that,
like our little tips and tricks. Because remember we were talking about like we always talk about like what's on your bench, and then I was like, well, why don't we take that to a more literal sense of not what's on your bench as far as like what you're working on, but what's on your bench as far as the tools that you utilize and the things that you've adapted into your arsenal of tools to be able to accomplish or achieve some of the things that you're able to pull off.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about scribing, when me, you and John were reviewing some stuff on that chat that day, it's just like, hey, here's a cool little tool that I find to be in ease of use, because remember, it was more like a ring, and I was able to hold it and kind of manipulate it a little bit better. And then so it's just like random things like that. Some medical pieces that, medical device tools that I found to be really handy that come in very useful for other bits. And it's just like random household articles or things that may be used for cars or medical devices that you can, are easily accessible, can be purchased anywhere. They're not modeling tools or specifically marketed towards modeling, but they work just as good, if not better, at accomplishing certain tasks. And I just thought it'd be a fun thing. And I just thought maybe we could also not just share and help people out, but learn from it. Because some people may be like, hey, I use this, and we're like, whoa, that will make our life easier if we adopt that as well,
I'm just thinking of some of the ones that I use. Like every day, I'm using toothpicks to put glue in tight places. I got by a box of cheap sandwich bags, right? To lay down and just pour like a little puddle of glue on there so I can like get it with a toothpick. I go through sandwich bags like crazy. I use it for when I'm applying epoxy to mix up,
That's funny. I use wax
use
paper, Chris.
Yeah. Well, wax paper rolls back up. That would drive me nuts.
No,
So
not like that. Not like it's one-sided. It's like thick on one side, and then it has you're talking about cooking wax paper. No, this is just like sheets. It's like a thicker paper. And it's not necessarily wax, but it's got. I'll have to show it to you. I don't have a piece there, but yeah, it's got like a slick. I do have a piece there. Hold on 1 second. But this works
you
great.
Do modeling in your bedroom?
I do it all the time, man. But for mixing
in your bedroom?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so I model everywhere. So for mixing paint and for mixing glues, it works really well. Like I'll show you. This piece is a little crumpled because I've been ripping off sheets, but here's a perfect example. This is great for mixing paints and mixing glue. So it's a thick, thick paper, but it's also got like a slick coating on it. So if you're mixing paints or if you're putting glue on it, it doesn't absorb the glue. The glue stays on it almost like as if it like water on something that's waterproof, where it like beads up, and you just mix resin or different types of glues or things like that. And an accelerator you can spread and then kind of swipe and put it on the piece that you need. But yeah, I use this stuff. And another thing that I use, this, you guys are gonna laugh at me, but this comes in.
Oh, I can't wait.
Now, this is like if I'm misting, if I'm priming, if I'm trying to like get that dirty, gritty look, and I'm kind of, I don't know if you ever utilize like a water, like spray bottle to, kind of let some stuff run and drip, and I'm sure you have, but these are great in addition to like pee pads, and it's called an Ultrazorb.
Yeah,
So
I've seen those. Like the people put them on the
open it,
ground for like.
This is what it looks like. No, dude, this is fantastic for painting.
And what do you?
And this, if you want to do like weathering
For painting, what?
For painting on it, and if you want to do like weathering, if you want to utilize like water or other elements to, work on your, weathering and layering, these are perfect for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do you putty? How do you apply putty?
How do I do what?
I've ever had in my life. How do you apply putty? Yeah, I'm back now.
Usually I just do it by hands, but what I'll do is I'll cut up rubber gloves and I'll wear them like finger columns. I don't like the finger columns themselves because they're not, I don't know, I don't feel like I have enough tactility, but I'll just cut off the fingers of rubber glove, and then that I'll just smooth over. Sometimes I'll have a little thing of water where I'll just kind of dab my hands, make it slightly moist, not too moist, and then just rub it in. And every once in a while I'll use, there's these tools that you can buy at like Hobby Lobby and Michael's. They're not for modeling. They're actually made for kinetic sand and Play-Doh. like clay, Play-Doh, and
Oh.
kinetic sand, that stuff that kids play with. And if
Yeah.
you use that, they have these rounded tips and these like nubbed tips. So if you're trying to like
Yeah.
fill in lines, like a piece that's scribed, and you're trying to take the scribe away, like reverse the scribe,
Mhm.
I'll use the edge
Mhm.
of that and just slide it and roll it into the line. And then this way you can just kind of, once it dries, sand the surface and then fills it right in 1 or 2 steps. So you're not sitting there all day,
I,
like reapplying.
I use a little 6-inch ruler, metal ruler that's only a 1/4 inch wide, and it gets in like really tight places, like in corners and stuff, where I can actually push it into an opening.
Yeah.
I use that to apply all my putty everywhere. I don't use like the putty knives or anything like that, or your fingers. I use this, and it gives you a nice flat surface. Another thing like that I've come to realize, I've been using Tamiya putty for over a year now, right? And I
Yeah.
thought, all right, this stuff's great. It works great. Then I ran up against this blue cloud car, right? And I was filling in scribe lines, and no matter how many times I filled it in and sanded it as lightly as I possibly could, it still showed the divot, because when it dried, a lot of the moisture evaporated and it would shrink. It shrunk into the crevice. So
Yeah.
I must have did the blue cloud car like 3 or 4 times. I was ready to throw it across the room. That's how mad I was.
I remember that.
And Joseph put me on this putty. I forget what it's called. It's like Perfect Plastic or something. Dude,
Yeah, I
it
remember when you
is.
said it to me, I was like, oh yeah, because they make a whole line of stuff that works amazing.
Oh my God, it was like magic. It didn't shrink. It dried it like in minutes. I didn't have to wait overnight for it to dry completely. And dude, no shrinkage whatsoever. It's beautiful. I'll use that for the rest of my life now.
Yeah, that stuff is great. And one thing I always keep on board, a lot of people use sandpaper, they use Dremels. I mean, we all do, right? My favorite go-to for getting nice, clean, meticulous, um, lines and clean bends, or even like just mending. When you're sanding, and I call it melting plastic together. But when you're sanding, like if you connect 2 pieces of styrene, you're sanding it to get it clean. You sand it so much that the separation disappears and the heat almost mends the plastic together. But regular nail files, emery boards, man, these are like my absolute go-tos over anything else. And you can actually see the putty and the paint like caked on these. It's literally my
Yeah.
go-tos,
Yeah.
because you have so much control of shaping, but you also can get into so many different areas, and it's so much easier to actually like hold a piece and then kind of file it down. And I go
Yeah.
into the beauty store all the time and I buy it because they're cheaper there rather than going to Walmart or Target. And plus you can get different grits. You can get ones that are really coarse, ones that are ever so subtle, and there's some that are even good for weathering, where if you like spray black or dark primer down, then you spray the color over it.
Mhm.
You can kind of just go over it with the emery board, the ones that are very, very, very slightly or subtle, and it just gives a nice little lift where it exposes some of that black, almost like a chafing, if you will. And I go in there all the time and buy stacks of them. They look at me like I'm crazy, because I'm literally at the beauty supply store
Yeah.
buying 20 emery boards, and they're like, oh
Yeah,
you
you're
do
buying
nails?
nail
I'm like,
polish, and listen, let's not kid each other. You're buying your toenail polish and getting your feet done and your
gotta
nails
stay
done,
fresh, brother.
for
Gotta
real.
stay fresh.
You know what else I
Gotta-
do a lot is, okay, I use a lot of files. I'm
Mm-hmm.
filing a lot. I have little files, big files, rough files, fine files,
Data files.
even little tiny ones that you put me on to.
Mhm.
Data files, yeah. It drives me nuts, okay, when these files get filled with the dust. Okay, it makes it harder to sand things. It does. It just like it fills in the grooves, and when you're going over top of things, it doesn't give you that serrated edge to cut off. I have this soft wire brush. It's not real hard. It's a softer one. You could like rub it against your fingers and it'll move around. But I clean out my files so much just so I don't have so I don't have to sand as much off using that. You know what I mean? Do you follow me?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm always sanding over top. I hate when there's dust all over everything. I just hate it. It's all over my workbench and on the floor. I am vacuuming and cleaning every like 2 hours when I'm doing stuff like that. Or I'll
Yeah,
file right over top
that's
of a
something
garbage can.
that's
What?
something that drives me crazy. I wish somebody had a setup, showed a picture of their setup, and basically they had a thing that sucked up all the dust and leftover, and I was like, oh, I need one of those.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful. And Swiffer dusters. I use Swiffer dusters like crazy. They get
Mhm.
the dust off of everything, off of, and suck it right on there. It doesn't, like, you buy the cheap generic ones, it just pushes the dust. It doesn't suck on to the Swiffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that'd be a fun show, and I think I would really like for it to be one of those things we can get people to engage, even if it's not in real
Yeah.
time, because there's not always a lot of watchers at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday or Wednesday. But even if in the comments people are like,
Just
hey, I use this, I use that, because I think it's a great way to learn, how to make things more efficient. I really
Yeah.
had to get creative when it came to scoring the tie, right? Making some of those the hexagonal shapes that kind of curve around the ball, and that's when I realized how pliable styrene really can be if you work with it. And but not only that, I had to give it a go so many times, and I was like coming up with all these different ways of doing it. And one of the tools that I utilized is now one of my everyday go-to tools, no matter what I'm building. So yeah, I'd love to really share, but also see what other people use as outside the box tools or everyday objects that they find to be really useful or helpful.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really use that is different or odd. I can't think of anything really.
I really like the medical
well.
stuff for scribing and marking and making point.
Yeah, you were supposed to send me the links for those so I could buy them.
Oh yeah,
Me
that's
and
right.
John.
I didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fedline.
But I won't remember. If I see it on paper in black and white in the text, I'll remember it then. Although we have more watchers now than we did before. It was like 3 before, and it's gotten more and more as time goes on.
Well, once people
What
catch
time
on,
is
or
it?
once I stop my boring rants, people start to tune in and listen.
No, listen, it was good you talked too much tonight, because until Jason helped us with the bandwidth, this was a shit show. So, but you know what I would love to see? I would love to see Matt on one of these shows. I would like to see how our Matt, yeah. He'd be bored to freaking tears. He'd be on there looking for Mando statue.
Okay, let that go.
No. Oh yeah, I want to kick his ass. Yeah. But yeah, we get I
So I want to do
more.
it. I know our channel doesn't have like tens and tens of thousands of subscribers or watchers, but I would love to do an AMA, which is like a ask me anything, and
Okay.
because I always get some of like most random questions on Messenger, and I'm just like, oh, do I feel comfortable answering that? I don't know, but it'd be kind of fun just to do like an AMA. But that's more reserved for people who get like a ton of views or viewers,
No, dude, I did that a couple times. I came on, when I travel for work, I don't want to sit in my hotel room. I'm not one to go out, sit in a bar and drink or anything like that. If I go away for work, I'm sitting in my hotel room watching stuff. But like, since we started this channel, I'm like, dude, let's do a show, because I don't got anybody bother me. I don't have anything to do around the house. I could just sit in my room and just talk as long as I want, right? Because I don't know if most people know this, I have too many living beings in my house. Like, I have way too many. And I went on a couple times. Oh, dude, I have so many kids and so many animals. um, I'll have to tell you something then about what my but I went on a couple times, like 2 times by myself, and I just was asking people questions. Like I just said, "Hey, there's 15 people in the chat in there. Ask away. Tell me what you want to talk about." And it turned out pretty good, even with just 15 people. Like it was a lot of fun. And we'll throw it out there now. If anybody has any questions, we're not experts at all, but maybe we can answer a few. I don't know, maybe nobody, but those are fun ones actually. Like, but I think maybe that's something we need to like advertise. Like, all right, it's going to be Q&A. Anybody in the chat ask questions, like ahead of time.
Yeah, I think
So
ahead of
people,
time. I think ahead of time is. I mean, doing it on the spot and candidly is definitely fun for sure. I agree, but
Mhm.
if you have a little bit more prep time for people, then it's one of those things where you can really kind of get into it. I'm proud of myself today too because we talked about how this community can also make
Are you proud of yourself? Did you get to the mailbox?
No. Oh yeah, I did.
Ah.
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
So before you cut me
do you
off
have-
rudely, I was gonna say I'm proud of myself because one thing I was gonna mention is how this community can kind of make you a little bit
Fuck
bitter
you.
at times. And
Yeah.
it's funny. Lee Ralph made a comment today when he was like, "Hey, I see you guys are doing the show. I'd love to watch it, but I've been building models for Jason all day. I'm tapped out and going to bed." And I was gonna write underneath this comment, like, "Hey man, I really appreciate it. Thank God I'm a serious buyer because he's really tired." And it's just one of those things where like the whole ask me anything, or the questions. The one thing I always get is, can we see your collection? And I don't do it to be coy. I don't do it to be cute. I don't do it to be like he. It's none of that. It really is. I mean, it really isn't.
Mhm.
And recently, I had showed some stuff to somebody, and they're just like, "Oh, Jesus!" Like, some of these pieces, like, wow, And I'm not saying that, I say that humbly, but it's just funny how some people take that into consideration. They're just like, "Oh, well, you don't show anything, so you don't really collect, and you don't really own anything, and you don't really this, and you don't really that." It's just really funny how
Dude,
that.
listen.
Well,
Listen, some of the biggest collections and biggest collectors who have the best stuff don't show their collection. Like I know of a few black hole collections that people have never seen,
yeah.
and they will blow your fucking mind away. Like crazy shit.
I mean, I wish
Sorry,
mine was that good, but I mean, I definitely get some key pieces that will, I get some stuff that I think people would be really surprised by or be like, wow, wow, okay. And some of the few bits and pieces here and there, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where like that's one of the main questions I get. But it's funny because as we were talking about that, it led me to that specifically because that scenario had recently affected me. Where someone was just like, "Man, you know what? You're not a serious buyer." Meanwhile, it's like, okay, well, here's your proof that somebody's like really been working on A, B, and C, and it's just I find that interesting. I find that one of those things. Yeah, this is true. Whole being Q&A shows are definitely becoming more popular now on some channels. And I got to say, I myself am a fan of them. I like watching them, especially if I'm a fan of the channel. I
I've never
definitely
watched them.
like, yeah, it's just interesting. Like if you watch a specific channel regularly and you're always curious, right? You're always curious about the individual who you're a fan of or the person who's creating the content. You know what their interests are and what their hobby is because you share that similar interest, but you always get curious, right?
Right.
One thing that I see, not so much now. I used to see when I first came into the channel and into the group, and I really didn't like it. I found it a bit distasteful and displeasing. Was people asking, "What do you do for a living?" or more so like from a financial perspective, and I found that really distasteful because you look at some collections, and what they don't take into consideration is people who've been collecting for 10, 20 years, right? You have a collection of somebody like with a bunch of master replicas who were buying them when they were at release. Now, if you look at them now, you're like, oh my god, these are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a piece and onward. And it's like, well, they didn't get them for that price, so it leads people to wow, like what do you do for a living? And I find that to be a little bit of an imposition. I mean, I don't mind sharing, but at the same
Yeah.
time, when people ask directly
Well,
for something like that,
so like the first thing that I said on my collection video, right? The one that's that I put up a couple weeks ago. First thing I pointed out was, this is 30 years of collecting. This is 35 years of collecting. Like, I bought this stuff when it was real cheap. I am by no means a millionaire. I am no means that, I have a steady good income, but I don't have crazy money. But I wanted to point that out right from the beginning so I didn't get those comments. Hey, you must be rich. You got all this stuff, like, that's not the case. I've built a lot of relationships that help me get the things for decent prices. I have, bought these when they were, like vintage figures. Like some of them I spent like $100 on, like a Han and Carbonite, $100 bought. I remember buying it at the comic store I worked at for $100. Actually, what happened was there was one that was on the shelf, and I told the guy who owned the comic store, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna buy that. I said, when I get paid, just take the $100 out of my check, and I'll just buy it.
Nice.
Fucker sold it on me. No, he sold it on me. Yes, he's like, all right, yeah, I'll take it out of your check. He actually sold it on me. I was so mad at him. I was ready to punch him in the face. And then another one came in like a couple months later, and I bought that one without, didn't even give him a chance to see it. I bought it from the guy who came in. I bought it, I offered him the money for it. So yeah,
you're right, and that's the thing. And even when people try to play catch up, right? We always say to a lot of the young guys or the newcomers, they go so hard and fast and trying to backtrack, and especially when you go to the group like the Hyperdrive, right? Where you have all these beautiful collections on display and people showcasing what they have. And I don't say nobody, but a lot of the newcomers don't stop to think like, hey, these guys didn't collect this. They didn't go last week and buy this entire collection. They've been collecting this piece by piece for years and patiently trading one piece out, upgrading a piece, selling a piece, doing the due diligence, starting off with, a Black Series helmet, upgrading to an RS, however it may be. And it's a timely process of patience. But you're right. There are those situations where, financially, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I have, I basically blow my nose with all the bills, but at the same time, I just
wipe your butt with $100 bills.
No, 20s, but
no, we're talking $100 bills. I've
had to tie my belt a little bit because of inflation, so it's 20s now.
Yeah, it's 20s now.
That's another thing that gets me when people are like, a serious buyer. I'm like, man, money's not the issue here. But I would say, and I think it's important, I want to emphasize on what you mentioned. Relationships, I think, are key.
Yes.
I'd say some of the most important pieces of my collection and some of my favorite pieces of my collection weren't because of money, weren't because of it basically was because of the relationships that were built or harvested. And because of those relationships, I was able to acquire things that I otherwise wouldn't have. Because you can have all the money in the world, and it doesn't matter if you don't have access to something, you don't have access to it. So that's a big thing. But it is important to tell people that it takes time, effort, energy, patience, and you know what? Research too, right? Research, providing links and information and reading about stuff. Like there's some great sites, like for example, the StarWarsHelmets.com was an early one that I remember being just a viewer of Rogue One 6 and throwing the link up, and you guys were going over that and talking about it, and that was a lot of fun. Roy from Wanawanga has that PDF on his site. It's like 80 pages deep of all the hilts, stunt hilts, and all the hilts used throughout Star Wars. And it's a great reference and guide of resource and things like that. But this all kind of comes full circle as to what I was saying between like the Q&As, but also modeling, right? You come back to it, and the modeling is all less the relationships and the time, effort, energy, and the due diligence. And I think it kind of all ties in together. Jason Holmes says, "What about a show dedicated to room builds?" Yeah, we've never did a straight up dedication to that. But can you hear me?
We're actually we've been planning on doing a show where we take, like, I wanted to show the progression of my room, like from what it was when I was 20 years old to my second one, which was, a little better than my first one. And then this one, like, kind of like my progression over the years of how my collection has changed and my collection rooms have changed. We're gonna do a show like that coming up very soon, Jason, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I wanted to mention, you were talking about collectors, and like how did you put it, the catch up collectors, something like that? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
How
like
you
kind of
pronounce
playing
it?
catch up and yeah.
Yeah. Also, FOMO collecting, like
Yes.
the hype collecting.
Dude,
Like,
and we've all been there. We've all I still get caught up in it sometimes. We all do. It's hard.
yeah, I'm a little
Nah.
more immune to it than most people. I'm a
Yeah,
little
we're a
bit
lot
more.
more disciplined now, but it still bites you every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah, like it did on a group therapy. I went and ordered that Hot Toys AT-RT or something for the Clone Wars, right? And I'm like, why the fuck did I order that? Like, I just got caught up in the hype a little bit. You tend to fall out of that as you grow over the years, and start to learn what you really like.
Yeah.
And having a focus too helps a lot.
Focus. The focus is huge. It
Even
keeps you disciplined.
Even a focus.
Yeah.
Even a focus within the focus. Like there's 100 million models. I'm not buying every single one of them. Like I'm not building every one of them. It's you kind of gotta like have blinders on sometimes to all these beautiful things. It's like being married. Like you gotta keep your blinders on straight ahead. You can't look at some chick walking by
It
or
could
something
be
like that. You know what I
dipping into
mean?
everything. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's actually
Right.
it's funny, but that I think that's great because even some people who like I only collect such and such a movie. Well, that's great, but like if you, for example, me sometimes, Chris, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to build this hilt or this helmet, but I'm also working on this model, and I'm searching for different pieces on different things at any given time. Oh, I'm trying to find this for Luke's piece, and I'm trying to find this for this model here, and so it gets overwhelming. And at one point when we first started off, said it feels like a second job or sometimes even a full-time job, and
Yeah.
that's when you start to get mentally and emotionally fatigued and taxed and just overall like, hey, I need to slow down. Because then you also, and this isn't a dig towards anybody, but you also find yourself in a position where you're literally selling things as they're coming in. They're just going right back out because you realize, man, I bought this, getting caught up in the moment or trying to focus on one thing over another. And until you develop your taste and you discipline yourself for the things that you like and have a focus. And trust me, it's hard. It's hard, especially when you see these amazing
very hard.
collections. And yeah, you look at things like, someone like, Christian's collection, and especially when not only are they varied, but they're displayed well. You feel like you get to just backtrack and get everything. And I bring this example up often, so you've heard it many times before, but one of the first things that really hit me hard with that is when I first joined the group, and Steve and Matt were backtracking to get the Mythos statues, and they were paying $1,000, $1,500. I'm like, Jesus, I paid $300 for these things, right? But keeping in mind, I bought them a decade ago. Well, now 13 years ago when they were released. Same thing. Everybody was going gaga over the dewback and the tauntaun, calling the dewback a grail, and I think I paid $265 or $280, whatever Sideshow charged for it at the time. And people were paying $2,000 plus for it. And to me, that was crazy, but I had to stop and take into consideration. Well, wait a minute. These people weren't here 12 years ago when the stuff was readily available directly at retail. They're just getting into it now. And this is what they have to, this is the market for it. And that's why I think it's smart to just figure out what you want to get into and why. And, but that's a conversation for another time because you can really get into depth with that. But again, it all comes full circle. Same thing with the models.
Another thing, you just mentioned it, grail piece, right?
Yeah.
What makes up a grail piece? Okay. What makes up a grail piece? I don't know. To me, a grail piece is different than other people, I think. A lot of people consider grail pieces to be expensive pieces. I kind of look at grail pieces as something like one-offs or like something that means something to you. Like my grail has always been and always will be that Revenge of the Jedi Millennium Falcon proof card, right?
Yeah.
It's never changed. It's always been something that I've been after for my pretty much since the first time I laid eyes on the thing. I have acquired it, right? It still is my grail out of anything. I have my Slave One, which is one of my favorite things in my collection, right? But that print is a grail to me because not because it's expensive, not because it's hard to get, but because it's just the one thing that has always been in my eye, thinking I never could own this thing, right? Because it's just nothing I didn't think I was ever going to find it,
Yeah.
Or a grail piece might be something like, say, like I have a bunch of pieces in my collection that were made by friends,
Yeah.
like
We just
Lee
talked about
Ralph.
that recently. Yep.
Yeah. John's pieces are grail pieces to me because he made them with his hands and he's my friend, right? And like I've said to you, like I said to you before, if you were to send me something, like something that you made yourself, it would mean more to me than something I could buy out of styrofoam. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I remember what Matt used to say all the time. He's like, I don't want something made by Chris.
Yeah, and it's an interesting mentality, right? Like if it's made by a friend, it's like, oh, it's considered junk, and if it's made by somebody else, but even we as artists do that, right? As creatives, you kind of look at some of your own models, and you're like, yeah, I guess it's good, but then you get one from somebody else. It's like it's weird, right? Because if I let's say I built an A-wing and you built an A-wing, you would probably enjoy mine over yours, and I would enjoy yours over mine. It's this weird mentality, right? Where like it's strange. It's really strange, but. Yeah, I really like that you brought that up, that a grill piece doesn't always mean that it has to be so expensive that it's, financially unattainable. Because sometimes a grill piece can just be the piece that you've always, yearned after, or the piece that you always wanted since you were a kid, or something that you saw and you did all this research on it and you learned everything about it that you possibly could, and you just, want to someday have that in your collection. I eventually, I had 2 grails specifically, and I was able to acquire them both. And as you mentioned, neither of them were nearly as expensive of some of the more mundane pieces of my collection. And it's just funny when I look at them and I say, this was harder to get through time, effort, and due diligence than it was throwing money at the problem. But yeah, grill really is a term that's thrown around loosely
A lot.
But
Very loosely.
I see people all the time. Hey, every week they get a new statue or a hot toy or whatever, and a new exclusive, a helmet. Oh, it's a grill, it's a grill, it's a grill. I'm like, everything can't be a grill, but tastes do change. In defense of those people, tastes do change. We do transition and get into different things. So that is.
But Jason, you also have to take into account. You said people mention grails a lot, and hot toy, for example. Okay, hot toys there's a lot of them. You can buy them at any point at any time, right? Like, me personally, I've come to the conclusion that there's a few that I like that I had on order, I canceled them. Okay, so when they come out, I'm gonna buy them after they've gone down in price, because they will go down in price, right? That may be a grail, like that hot toy, Scarlet Witch, or Black Widow, or Yoda hot toy may be a grail to somebody. Like it may actually be a grail to that person. So grail can mean a lot of different things. I'm not saying this to be snobby or anything, but like when I look at a hot toy, I don't see a grail, but somebody else might. It's all a personal thing. It's just when people, oh, that's a grail, that's a grail, that's a grail. I got this grail, I got this grail, I got that grail. The word grail doesn't mean as much.
I see it all day, every day. Yeah. We have an interesting question. So Jason Holmes, he's been pretty active in the chat tonight. I like that, Jason. He asked you if you ever used Musso Black, which I don't know if you ever have, man, but I love experimenting with different paints. And what Musso Black does is it kind of creates. So basically, there's no absorption or refraction of light whatsoever. It's like they call it. It's basically like the blackest of blacks. If you
Okay.
visit Stuart Semple's site, he has one where you can do like the Musso Black. You can do like chrome if you want like actual chrome paint. It's literally like liquid mirror. I kid you not, Chris. It's like liquid mirror.
Mm.
And then the black is just so black that it literally like disappears. Like if I painted my hand Musso Black, right, it would look like there was no hand there. I could literally go like this, and you would just see my like arm from the wrist down moving.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
radical stuff. It really is some radical stuff, and it's really fun. I mean, I don't see where or how it would apply to modeling in any way because it's too black, but at the same time, as you know, I mean, you're creative as well, and you're not just someone who does models. I know you don't paint or draw, nearly as much as you did when you were younger, but it is something that you do, and I've seen your work. But if it is something fun, worth experimenting with and kind of messing around with, it's pretty radical stuff.
I think Jason was thinking that I would use that like on my walls where I have black.
Okay,
Are you?
yeah.
Is that where? I think that's what he was referring to when he brought it up, because I have those walls that have my helmet walls have black, and
You could
I
you
hate
could
the
yeah you
black.
could do that. I mean, you could literally
I
put it on a roller and paint. Yeah.
I could. I just don't really want to. All that work to do that would be. I don't want. I want to work less on my house than I used. Now that I have most of it done, I do have to do a few things to my collection room to add more space so I can put more models out. But yeah, like most of it is staying like it is. And if it doesn't, my wife will kill me because she wants to get stuff done around the house before I continue building more things for the basement. So
And
yeah.
Aaron
Thanks,
mentions
Jason.
true Musso Black can't be purchased, right? And Aaron, yes, you are correct. The like actual true Musso Black is used for military purposes, and it's used for like numerous applications like clandestine applications and things that they really need to. Yeah, it's used in a variety of ways. And there was actually a couple exhibitions that were held utilizing it where you walk into this room painted Musso Black and it's just a giant void. It's actually kind of freaky, man. It kind of like gives you like a bit of an anxiety attack. But yeah, true
To look
proper
into that.
Musso Black can't really be purchased. But I have to say, messing around with a few variations of it, I've noticed everything from like kind of like a cheap knockoff that's like, hey, this is pretty good stuff for $20 to, like I said, like Stuart Semple stuff where I'm like, hey, this is about as close as you're going to get. And it is at the end of the day, it's still pretty radical for what it can do. Yeah, like you said, military. See, I mean, this shit is, Chris, when I tell you black, it's nuts. It's just nuts. It's kind of a fun thing. Right? I mean, I could do a whole show on it. It's radical, man.
There's no blue in it whatsoever. It's just total black.
Dude, it's when I say black, it literally it's just there's no. So we all know how colors work, right? It's all refraction, reflection, and absorption of light. That's the thing. It works by there's no light. It just doesn't absorb or bounce light in any way. And yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy stuff. But yeah, the truest of true forms can't be. It's utilized by the military, but you can get about 98.5, 98.9% close to it, and it's fun stuff to mess with. And the chrome stuff too. Like I started using, and this is another thing, Chris, talking about like tools of the trade for modeling. This is something I turned you on to a little while back when it came to paint applications. And I remember Trooper Trent actually put this out there for his training remote kit, and I kind of not giggled in a snarky way, but just kind of like great idea, right? Because it's something that I utilized. So for painting, when it comes to like signature plaques, or if you're painting models, if you're priming, if you're trying to paint something unique color, tools that are utilized for graffiti, companies like Montana, Iron Lac, Molotov, they have their own websites that are dedicated to strictly just buying all these graffiti-based supplies, crank, etc. And man, you're gonna get some of the most best enamel, oil, acrylic, pigment-based applications out of these paints than you would any hardware store or rattle can or spray brush style paint. I mean, some of the stuff for different colors, applications, the way it adheres is just amazing, amazing. And I think Trooper Trent and
Wow.
the training remote was talking about the Molotov because it's chrome. The only thing about that is difficult to handle because, as I mentioned to you before, it takes a long time to dry. Even Adam Savage talks about working with like all clad, but when you're working with the chrome paint, you can actually spray it with an airbrush, and you're literally spraying mirror onto a piece. I mean, it's like reflective like this. This is like what you're spraying. It's just great stuff. But I think some of the tools utilized for graffiti and street art can be some of the best paint applications out there.
I just looked up that pictures of that black. Wow, that is freaking
It's
crazy.
nuts, man, huh?
That is absolutely bonkers.
It's cool stuff, isn't it, man?
It just totally makes something disappear.
Disappear, brother. Gone. Done. Boom.
Wow. No light reflection whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's like a flat, right? It's like a flat paint, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's in it that gives it that?
What's the
Do you
pigment
know?
base? I don't know. Obviously, there's absolutely no opacity to it. I'm not sure what the makeup is to produce it, but
Oh, that's a crazy dude.
it's
This
fun
guy,
stuff. I mean, I've been messing with it for years,
This
and
guy-
it's a lot of fun.
this guy did it in his room, and he walked in, and you can't even see him.
And you can't see him; he disappears. And I think for larger projects like painting a wall, they have what's called Vanta Black. Because I remember using Vanta Black about 5 years ago and playing with that. And then the Musso Black came out, and then I remember Molotov. Because Ironclad was known for like the gold and the what's it called, the chrome, but it was close enough but not quite. And the Molotov came out with their chrome, and it was like, wow, this is actually chrome. Like it's like hard to manipulate, but this is actually chrome. But then
Wow,
Speed Simple came out with mirror paint, and the mirror paint, man, I got to tell you, even that stuff, if you look it up, Chris, the mirror paint, man, is just crazy to work with.
this stuff's insane, dude.
Isn't it? It's radical.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be actually pretty cool to put on my black wall, to be honest. It would be very cool. I mean, sure, it's expensive. I'm sure it's very expensive. I wouldn't want to
It's not
do a
as bad
whole
as
wall
you
of
would
it,
think,
but
man.
no.
No, it's not as bad as you would
Even, like
think.
this guy painted his car with it. Oh my god, that's a bad idea. Like driving on the road.
Yeah, I think
in the middle of the night.
they blasted it with a beading coat though of hypershift. I think they put hypershift over it, so when it drives, the
Yeah.
color contrasts.
It like sparkles a little bit.
Yeah, but the liquid mirror I think is something that you'd find interesting too, because like I said, that you can just throw in an airbrush and spray it, and the liquid mirror literally just applies. Like you can paint
It's
a
just called
spoon.
liquid mirror.
Yeah, liquid mirror, and that stuff
just
is
Liquid.
yeah. I mean, it literally just like the Vanta Black or the Musso Black does the same thing. It just literally creates a mirrored finish.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay. So we've been talking all night, but we haven't really talked about certain that you're working on. I talked about my sandcrawler. I'm working on a sandcrawler and an A-wing again, and I'm going to be doing another sandcrawler, a smaller sandcrawler. My big thing right now is this this studio scale sandcrawler. I want to get that done.
Excuse me. Right now, I'm just working on a couple commissions, man. I'm just building some stuff. I'm working on a training remote. I just finished up an A-wing pretty much, but I have to get a piece for it that was missing out of my kit. But other than that, that's almost pretty much done and ready to go. Working on training remote. I was finishing up, as I told you last week, an ATST for somebody that I don't know. They've been kind of now doing the whole. I don't know if I had them. The typical.
Oh really?
Yeah, and it's a bummer because I said, do you want do you want me to go all in on this? And it's pretty much 90% all original donut parts, which is a little bit of a bummer. But
I think we need to
yeah,
show at least one. I think we need to show at least one of our pretty faces.
yeah, I just had to plug my computer was about to die, so I shut the camera off.
Okay.
But I plugged it in. It's good. So yeah, just doing a couple commissions right now and having some fun with those. And I kind of got into this. Good.
No, go ahead. Finish sentence. I want to jump to a different topic soon. Something.
I was gonna say I kind of got into the zone on these last few. So I mean, you know how that goes. They always come out better when you're in the zone. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the turnout, because I was like,
So I put up a little spanner at the bottom. Spoiler.
I'm making this.
I don't get too deep into specifics because whoever's listening, I don't want to scare them off. But I was just thinking about the Mando ship that he's flying around in right now. This Hot Wheels silver, I don't know what they call it. N1, is it called the N1, right?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Naboo fighter that's all decked out. And I was looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's no recognizable kit parts on there, right? I think that's what really bugs me about it is I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't look Star Wars to me. I know the Naboo fighter is episode 1 and it is a cool looking ship and it was designed by Doug Chang, but it kind of stands out as not a very Star Wars type of ship, right? And we're talking vehicles tonight, so we can talk about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there were other things in there that I looked at and I thought, okay, those look like they have some kit parts on. And take, for example, in the beginning where they showed that wrist piece, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When it was getting dressed and there was that wrist piece and you could see the underside of it.
The chest piece, you mean? The chest piece.
Was it a chest piece or was it
the centerpiece of the armor?
Oh, was it? Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see John pointed out a C-Lab piece in there, and I noticed a couple
There's a
other
few pieces on there.
Yeah. And it's just, for some reason, ships that have kit parts like that seem to be more fitting in with Star Wars ships, Star Wars movies and stuff than let's on it, right? I don't, other than my eye picks up these kit parts, but even though I still look at this thing and think it has Star Wars feel to it, like Battlestar Galactica. Those ships are Battlestar Galactica, but they look a lot like Star Wars ships because of all the shared kit parts, right? So even you take, for example, the Razor Crest. That looks like a Star Wars ship. Why? Because they have a bunch of kit parts on it. They have a bunch of tank and airplane and car pit parts on it. And I think what a lot of these designers, let's take, for example, Rogue One. I know there's a guy who designed a bunch of those ships in there, like Amphithests, speeder bike and the ATDT. They were put together with kit parts, and they just really fit into these movies, whereas that N1 doesn't fit at all, or even the Trade Federation Circle ship, it just doesn't seem like it fits in Star Wars to me, unless it's built with kit parts. Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm. No, all right.
Mm-hmm. No. So yeah, I'm not fond of that ship in Mando. I want them to go back to the Razor Crest or buy one or find one that's like the Razor Crest.
Yeah, that was more fitting for the character and the plot.
What's that?
I said the Razor Crest, excuse me, was just more fitting to the character and the overall plot of the show.
Up hot rod, that's made to carry around Grogu.
Orange County Choppers. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, he is right.
Kunja Club is right too. Yeah, it's a little
N1
something.
ship. Yeah, Kunja Club. The N1 ship looks like something from Battle Beyond the Stars. It does. I'm not a fan. I'm not really a fan of the. Okay, so you take in episode 1 where they have that battle cruiser, the red one that got blown up on the Trade Federation ship. That was made with kit parts. It fits. It just bothers me so much, but it does. I wasn't a big fan. After school special to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you think? I mean, we get spoilers up, right? And we're at the tail end. It's midnight. What did you think of it?
I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it also was just like, I don't know.
Wasn't anything to write home about.
No. Spent way too long on that standoff.
Back
No.
again.
I'm talking about the standoff, the gunfight in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole 3 minutes of a 20-minute show that's wasted of them just staring at each other, getting ready to draw, and those pirates, that was not good. It was terrible. I don't know. That was especially the main one. That was awful looking.
Yeah, the pirates threw me off to the whole Caribbean thing.
What?
Jason Holmes kind of not revised, but was kind of freshening up what he meant. And that I think is a banging idea. So to make it the background for a ship and then poke the fiber optics through, because that's all you'd really see was the fiber optics coming through.
That'd be cool. That would be cool.
There we go. We're gonna start getting a bunch of requests. Hey, when you work on my model, can you do this and paint it with the Vanta Black and the most?
I'm just putting it out there. I don't know who's listening. Like, I don't do dioramas. I tried it once. I don't do diorama bases. I'm not good at it. Let's just put that out there. Like, I think I did okay with my ion cannons, but for the most part, I was very unhappy with the diorama base of them. So yeah, I don't do diorama bases. Did my camera get fuzzy? Yeah.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was gonna do a diorama base for the do you remember that for the sandcrawler? I was gonna do sand and have like this half.
That wasn't a bad idea though. I liked that.
No, it wasn't a bad idea at all. I even had a 3D printed crate dragon that I had half buried in the sand. It just for some reason didn't look right to me. It was a cool idea. Yeah, I thought of doing that in the beginning. But then I realized, oh, this is gonna be a humongous base, and what am I gonna do with it? Like, I can't like put it on one of those pedestals like I do with the one I have now. I'd have to have like a 2 by 3 foot area just to put the base, and I don't have that. I have a large room, but it's filling up. Okay, that's a good idea, Jason. I appreciate that. I do have my Falcon on over top of a piece of acrylic, and that may not be such a bad idea to do. Change the acrylic to paint the acrylic with that black. That's not a bad idea at all, because I am going to get rid of that table and build a new pedestal for that eventually, because I need more room. But on that note, I think we're pretty good. We're at 2:15. We've been on for longer than I thought we'd be on. What do you think?
Yeah, we could tap out. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss the Razor Crest too. I really do, Aaron. I like that ship a lot, and I thought for sure they'd come back with Oh, we found another model of it, with different paint jobs so people can buy it, which they may still do. I'd be for it.
I still really
So,
thought it was. Sorry, I know we're trying to get off, but I remember
no,
when
sorry.
people were like, the HasLab, oh, look, they blew it up. Oh, look at all you suckers who bought it. And I'm like, we got almost a whole season, of a TV series with the Razor Crest. We saw the
Hmm.
Silbage of the katana for all of like what, a minute and 30 seconds before they blew it up. And
Yeah,
people
pretty
were
much.
still on that, and it's still its own,
Yep.
it's its own, ship. But
Yep.
yeah, I thought that was funny that people kind of slam in that, and because it's an interesting, the Razor Crest is an interesting design, and I thought that HasLab
Oh, it's
project
very
was
cool.
a cool piece. Yeah,
I actually took my hat. I got a HasLab from Steve. I have one in a box, and I got another one from Steve, and I started painting it to make it look a little bit more realistic. And I haven't been back on it. I got too many projects to do before I get back to that. I actually started painting it,
what's in the
and it looks
box?
much. Huh?
I was just saying, what's in the box? It always pops in my head when somebody says box.
Hmm.
7. What's in the box? The head.
Yeah, I remember that, but did I say box?
Yeah, you were saying I have one in the box, so I said, what's in the box?
Okay.
I was just being
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's time to get off now.
Yeah, it's a little too late. I want to punch you in the throat for saying that.
Yeah. That's like that's like my kids think I have dumb jokes, but that one's way worse.
No, dude, you're getting grouchy. All right, it's time to check.
I'm not grouchy. I never get grouchy. I have been grouchy lately. I won't deny that. Yeah. I got to go on vacation soon. So, all right, man. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a fun one, actually. We didn't have any particular plans to talk about anything specific, but it turned into a good.
Yeah, it's good. We know they're late and they're random, but hey, Aaron, thanks for popping in, man. We miss you over at group therapy, man. You missed the good times,
Yeah.
dude. Remember that night with Cat Trek? What was it, Aaron?
Yeah.
Live long and prosper. Man, that's stupid, but I
Yeah.
almost fell off my seat. Yeah, yeah, I mean
Nah,
stitches.
that. Yeah, and I hope tonight, like we didn't the conversation in the beginning. Like, I don't want to upset anybody or have bad feelings for anybody, but like I hope they can understand a little bit better why things are the way they are, and that's not always the case, but it's worth talking about. And
It is. I think it's really. It is. It's a sore subject. It is worth talking
it
about,
is.
and that's why. And that's. I'm glad you said that, and that's why I said it's not aimed towards any one person in particular, because we did it at one point in time for quite a while, actually.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And people are doing it now, and it's just giving a better. And it's not the first time we talked about it, but I just hope going a little bit deeper into it, just gives a better understanding. And I just kind of went on this bit of a rumination today mentally, where I was thinking a lot about it after just that one little thing, and I'm just like, wow, like so much comes down. There's so much at stake on like one
Yeah.
little piece. It's
Yeah.
it's make or break
Yeah.
sometimes.
That is. You could lose friends. You could lose, trust. You could lose.
A lot of time
know.
and effort that you put into something, you can lose a lot of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
It breaks up groups. It breaks up friendships. It breaks up. It just does. It's just. I think people need to think outside of themselves sometimes, and see other people's point of view on it. So, which, like I said, we were guilty of it in the beginning. So I can't say that I'm perfect. I thought that way too in the beginning, but now I do understand. I do. And even today, like I was told, I don't know if I can give you that information. It's not like the gates open widely as soon as you start getting to know people. Like, and I understood. I was like, yeah,
They just
cool, I
let
understand.
you peek inside and come in for some water
Yeah.
sometimes, and they let you use the bathroom, but you can't hang out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of
And
what it's like.
I no ill will, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Like no sideways thinking. No, I'm like, oh, I understand. No worries, no problem. I'll if I can't get it from you, I'll just dive into the kit parts and find it myself. Which I was going to do that tonight, but I got here late. So, all right, everybody. Good night. Thanks for joining us, and I really enjoy these shows so much that we need to start doing them like weekly.
Yeah.
Because these are a lot of fun and actually like thought provoking and more educational. So, all right, everybody. Good night.